Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons list now! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
All right, so Etienne, welcome to the Podcast. Nice to see you.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
So before we get into anything too deep, let's talk about who you are and how you got your pen name, by the way. That's pretty cool. When I looked you up originally, I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's dead. This can't be the same guy. So I had to search, of course, on DuckDuckGo to find you, So let's get into it. What's going on with the pen name?
So my pen name is Etienne de la Boetie², and the original Etienne de la Boetie was a French political philosopher. He wrote in the 16th century, and he was really, kind of the first to chronicle the little tools and tricks that rulers used, not just to get obedience, but to get fealty and adoration out of their populations. A little bit like Machiavelli, but Machiavelli was like, hire me, and I'll show you how to run these slaves. And Boetie was more of like, these guys are jerks. This is a scam. They're running game on you. This is the little tricks they're using. And he would just cry, and so he would just, he kind of blew it out of the water. And so I've got a couple kids that are stuck in the government school system. And so I don't want them to get any, heat from what dad is doing. And so I write under the pen name, but my book, Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, which you can get at government-scam.com, is really designed to, take somebody that's unfamiliar with the illegitimacy of government, the undesirability of government, the ineffectualness of government, the criminality of government. It's designed to take them from 0 to 60 in the shortest amount of time. It's designed for visual learners. It's to wake up your friends, your family, your relatives, or even be dropped off at somebody's house to where when they pick it up and they just begin leafing through it, they're so captivated by the visualizations and historical photos and everything that's in the book that they can't put it down.
Wow. Well, I have seen your website and I've read your book, and it's mind-blowing, and it does put everything perfectly into it. I mean, it's very visual, and I think it's going to be a great tool for everyone to check out. Something else that I noticed, which was really, really inspiring, was every page I read, I kept saying to myself, I need to get this to everyone I know. Yeah. And when I went on your website and looked a little further into like maybe getting a couple copies for friends, you seem to have already planned for that, where there's multiple options to buy upwards of like 10, 20 books and stuff like that in a package deal. I really think that's forward thinking. So I appreciate that.
Well, no, so the book is designed to, wake up your friends and your family. And if you've ever had trouble explaining, these concepts, then this is a very sharp tool for you to be able to break through, because most people are visual learners. They come to insight much quicker when they see information. And so the other thing I guess we should probably, preface the audience with is that I'm a voluntarist. And a voluntarist is someone that believes that all relationships between human beings should be voluntary, Nobody gets to use violence or coercion or extortion on anybody else, not even the government. The government doesn't get a pass from morality. And so voluntarists don't believe that the government is legitimate, that it's desirable, or that it's necessary. And that everything the government does, from roads to armed protective services to air traffic control to everything except, redistribution. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul. That's immoral. That's the sign of a bad government. But like all of the like legitimate services that the government performs would better be performed by the free market, by mutual aid societies, by real charity. And so that's the big secret. We don't need government. That everything that government does would better be done. It would be faster, cheaper, more effective, or more likely should not be done at all. And that if you did that, then the economy would flourish, and you wouldn't have the misallocation of capital. You wouldn't have the inflation. You wouldn't have, half of your income being stolen and kind of overt taxes, covert taxes, and inflation. And when I say covert taxes, like everybody understands the 1040 and, what they're paying in income tax. But when you really add up all of the other ways that government is dinging you, from, every time you pay your cable bill or your cell phone bill, or you, buy a bottle of beer or pack of cigarettes, or you get a gallon of gas, or you buy an airline ticket, or you get a rental car, or you get a hotel room, or you get, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And corporations, they don't pay taxes. They just pass those taxes on to the customer in higher, prices. And so, when you just add all of these layers and layers of taxes, if everybody got that back where they were spending their money, most efficiently, then, you'd see society flourish. You'd see the economy boom, because you wouldn't have the economic misallocation. You wouldn't have the monopoly privileges. You wouldn't have, technologies locked up in quote unquote patents and intellectual property that it really hurts society, doesn't help society. And so, the economy would blossom if it wasn't for government running this scam on the population. Wow. We'll get into the scam in a second, but I just wanted to kind of set the table that, right off the bat, I don't believe government is legitimate. I don't think that we need it. And that there's market, pressures, from the Adam Smith's invisible hand to, the capital creation function of the market to, to economic efficiency that would much better allocate capital and create wealth for everybody than having the government steal it and serve as an inefficient, crooked middleman.
Yeah, it seems that like in our modern society, among all the, basically everybody considers corporations evil. And at the same time, we kind of fear the free market in a way. We treat it like an enemy in some ways, but it's only because of the government's influence on those processes. Am I right?
Well, not only we don't have capitalism in the United States. And when I say capitalism, my understanding capitalism is it's just a free market where, the government doesn't get the ability to control the market participants. Everybody gets to spend their own money. There's no laws against you doing business with these companies or those companies. Nobody gets to have monopoly privileges like AT&T or the post office or, any of the other, monopoly privileges that the government gives away. And that, but the problem is that in the United States, people associate this mixed economy and the crony capitalism of giving, banks the ability to create money out of thin air, even though it's inflationary, or, handing agricultural subsidies to big agri, or, mandating that, big pharma, everybody has to take a mandatory vaccine to have their kids go to school, or that the government gets to control the educational curriculum for your kids. Like, people associate that with crony capitalism. And, they associate crony capitalism with capitalism. And that's just not the case. In a true free market, the only companies that are making money are the ones that are satisfying their customers by providing a good or a service faster, cheaper, better, more efficiently than their competition. And so under crony capitalism, certain companies, they get to make outsized profits because they've lobbied the government for monopoly privilege, or they've had economic regulations placed on their competition, or they've had the government write them no bid contracts so that they grow faster than their competition. And then people see that inherent unfairness in the economy, and they're like, well, that's capitalism's fault. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's government, making, something that isn't capitalism, look bad by picking winners and losers in the economy. And so I'm not advocating crony capitalism. I'm advocating free market capitalism, where the only way that, that companies make money is by satisfying the customer, by providing, a product that society wants, where they've got to compete for your money. And if you don't like them, you can fire them. Unlike the post office or the monopoly police or we can go down the line, the inefficient government provider that gets protected and is giving capitalism a bad name.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the the corruption at the core of our laws, right? That's what we're really getting into here, is that from the very beginning they've been corrupt, right?
Well, I tell you, so the first thing that we ought to get into is it's number one, they've been corrupt since the beginning. And so the way that I encourage people to understand government is that government was never intended to protect life, liberty, and property. Government was always intended to rob and control populations. And don't think of it as a technique used by intergenerational organized crime to rob and enslave humanity. And so the reason that it's illegitimate and undesirable and unnecessary is they have to lie to you about it, and it's not moral, it's not logical. So it's impossible. The first thing that the audience has to wrap their head around is that it is 100% impossible for there to be a legitimate moral government. There is no way that a written piece of paper or the divine right of kings or any of the other excuses of why this ruling class in society gets to make up rules and use violence on everybody else comes into fruition. It just doesn't work. And it doesn't work for a number of reasons that I'll define right now. But the number one is that it is impossible morally and logically for anybody to delegate a right that they do not possess themselves to a representative to represent them, doing something they don't have the ability to do themselves. So if I myself personally do not have the ability to take Andrew's money and spend it on social welfare schemes or $14,000 toilet seats or $400,000 F-35 helmets or any of the other scams that the government is running on you on a daily basis, then I can't delegate a right I don't have myself to a representative or to a government to represent me doing something I don't have the ability to do myself. I can't be bound by a social contract that I didn't sign. And if, me and my fiance can't vote to rob Andrew because there's two of us in the room and one of him, it doesn't matter if there's 5 of us or 20 of us or 350 million of us all voting to rob Andrew. There is no additional human being that takes something that is inherently immoral and then makes it moral just because the mob wants to, lynch black folks or rob Peter to pay Paul. And so those are all the ways that government is, legitimizes itself, democracy, or, the delegated rights and whatever. And so when you really, really think about it, the idea that 36 slave owners on a continent of 3 million people hundreds of years ago can go into a room and write down on a piece of paper that they alone get to make up rules for everybody and steal the wealth of others. Well, the only reason anybody believes it is they have put you into a government school or an accredited school, and they have taught you that from a time when you were so young that you were just too young to evaluate the logic or the morality of that idea. And I mean, it is a dumb idea, and it didn't work. And so the idea that this Constitution was able to limit government, or was able to bind down the government from, with the chains of the Constitution, or, or protect rights, it didn't work. Like, it's illogical, it's immoral, and from just a utilitarian standpoint, it didn't work. It didn't do what it said it was going to do. And so we all need to realize that we've been scammed and had. And so, when I take a look at the first, what I call intergenerational organized crime as royalty, and royalty is, you're going to give us your money or we're going to hurt you. And then royalty developed, a number of different unethically manipulative psychological techniques. God save the queen, giving back, bread and circuses, giving back a portion of the, what they was stolen, and kind of annual feasts, and, wearing robes and crowns. And so they've tricked the population into going along with it. And so what I'm doing in the book is I'm exposing some of those techniques so that the population understands how they've been robbed, how they've been tricked, how they've been chumped. And once people realize that it's illegitimate, and also that the media is in on it. And so, the book, Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, the subtitle is How Intergenerational Organized Crime Runs the Government and the Media. And that's one of the other big, secrets in the book. It's been the government and the media working together to control these populations since the beginning. So there's a culted knowledge in society that, like, there's a playbook of, how do you, create the culture of tax slavery in a population. And what I do in the book is I pull back the curtain and I show you, what that playbook is. And so once you realize, and you can see it with your own eyes, and if it's okay with you, I'll share some some pages from the book.
Definitely.
And Absolutely. We'll just go through, like, what the playbook looks like. But when, nobody likes to get chumped. And so, what I do with the book is, by pulling back the curtain and showing, how the magician does the trick. Well, once you know how the magician does the trick, then you can't get fooled again. And so, I'll just go ahead and I'll start by, sharing, the cover of the book here. And then we'll start with, we'll just go down a couple of pages.
Wow. The cover is just breaks my heart.
Yeah, so a lot of people, let's just start with the cover. And so, a lot of people don't realize that, what most people are familiar with and they think is the Nazi salute is actually, the Nazis got it from us. It was called the Bellamy salute. It was a media operation started by Freemasons in the 1890s that got military socialism, the robotic chanting, the federal flag, which was not present in the schools at that time. So it was a media operation run by Freemasons that got the flag into the schools, and then got the kids not only doing the pledge, but this was called the Bellamy salute. And the Bellamy salute started with a military salute. And it said, "I pledge allegiance to the flag." And then the kids would stick out their arms towards the flag. And over time, they're starting in kind of 1907. So this started in 1892. And starting in 1907, there was a movie came out called Ben-Hur, and it began popularizing the Roman salute. And so kids started just sticking their arms kind of straight up and in the time. And if you go and you search on a search engine that's not CIA, Google, you're going to find lots of pictures of American kids doing what everyone would recognize as the classic palm down Heil Hitler salute. That's at the majority of the times. This picture was taken by the LA Times in 1943 during the changeover to the hand over the heart. So we started doing it in 1892. The Italian fascists started doing it in 1919. The Nazi Party started doing it in 1926. The Nazi Army started doing it in 1944. We switched from the Bellamy salute to the hand over the heart on Army Day in 1943. And so this is what the government school, these are some of the things the government school didn't, teach you. And so what I want to start really with, is the first part of the book is what I call kind of like the playbook of how do you slave up a society. And so I break down 20 techniques used by what I call intergenerational organized crime to create the culture of slavery and tax slavery. And then I show what it looked like in each time and place. And so I'm going to show you that, just to kind of prove the point that all of these countries are using the exact same playbook, I'm going to explain what the technique is. And then I'm going to show what it looks like in Nazi Germany, the US government, Soviet Union, East Germany, because these are the de facto worst regimes in history. You don't get any more evil than these countries. And so if the United States is using the exact same playbook as the Nazis and the Soviets and the East Germans, then something's wrong at the top. And maybe we've been lied to about the legitimacy of government, the necessity of government, and the desirability of government from the beginning. And because it's been the government and the media controlling the information that we receive, whether it's by controlling the information we receive in the mandatory government school, or it's controlling the information that we receive through the monopolization of the media or the algorithmic censorship of the internet, which we'll get into in a little bit, they're controlling the information to make it seem like it's legitimate that they get to rob us. It's legitimate that we got to do what they say. And they're running game on us because the first technique is the artificially indoctrinated holy symbol of the flag. So we're going to slide the population that government isn't just necessary and desirable, but we're going to use kind of the same unethically manipulative techniques as a cult or a disingenuous religion, okay, that maybe understands human psychology, and we're going to slide them government as a religion. And so we're going to give the population a flag, and then we're going to product place that flag on the sly into movies and television shows. We're going to use propaganda techniques like anchoring, where we'll build the audience up to a moment of high positive emotion. And everywhere you see the little, the hypertext links in the PDF version of the book, if you get the PDF version, you can click through and you can actually see videos that will show you and demonstrate the product placement, 469 product placements in just 12 Michael Bay movies, where they just string, the flag a couple, every time the flag's on screen together, and got a little ding, and then they've got a little counter showing every time Michael Bay has, product placed the flag in one of these movies, and it's just going ding, 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 as it, all these different flag product placements roll by. Wow. Or the example that I use for anchoring is Matt Damon in the movie The Martian. We're going to build them, we're going to build the audience up to this moment of high positive emotion of Matt Damon escaping Mars. And then boom, we cut to Earth and everybody's waving American flags. And then boom, we go to Mission Control and there's giant American flags on the backdrops. And so they've gotten you to that moment of high positive emotion, and then they show you the flag, and they've been doing it your entire life. And now that I've brought the technique to your attention, you're going to start seeing it all the time and noticing it all the time. But we're using these unethically manipulative techniques to give you a warm and fuzzy about being an American and about the flag. And but the reality is that we've got an organized crime system stealing half your money, running game on you to get you religiously attached to this artificially indoctrinated symbol. Now, this is also why the NBA has the flag on the backboards. So you associate the exhilaration of the goal with the flag. This is why the NFL has it on their helmets. So the next technique is, so any good religion needs some holy documents. And so all of these have a constitution and a Bill of Rights that's kind of the equivalent of the Bible. Then there's the mandatory government school employing the Prussian model of education. So we're going to take the kids, we're going to put them into the church school where the priest is going to indoctrinate them subtly, very, very subtly, into the religion of the state. So we're going to have them do the common prayer of the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to have them sing the hymns of the national anthem. We're going to give them books that tell them it's all legitimate. We're going to take them in 8th grade to the Mecca, Washington, D.C., where we're going to take them into the cathedral of the U.S. Capitol that looks like the Vatican for a reason. We're going to take them to the temples. We're going to show them the deities, and we're not going to call it a religion, but anybody that's ever seen the people flying the flags in their homes and off their vehicles and wearing all of the religious regalia, just like the people that might be overly religious in other religions will immediately recognize that it produces, a kind of religious fervor in the population if you don't understand what they're doing. And so the president is the Pope, and we'll get into that in a little bit. The other unethically manipulative techniques that they're using is there's an obedience component in the government schools that conditions people to obedience to authority. And this is the drill bells, it's having them walk in line, requiring permission to use the bathroom, the assigned seating, warrantless searches of students, lockers and bags to show that, any government employee can go through your stuff anytime they want. It's using techniques like public shaming and collective punishment and the red, yellow, green troublemaker boards and socialization of the monopoly police through school resource officers and the DARE program. And then finally, there's a debilitation. We're going to force the kids to have mercury and aluminum laced vaccines. We're going to give them, attention deficit disorder medications, fluoridated water in the water fountain, glyphosated soaked and GMO garbage food in the cafeteria. So then after that, the next technique is a youth program. So it was the Hitler Youth in Nazi Germany. It was the Russian Young Pioneers in the Soviet Union. It's East Germany's Young Pioneers in East Germany. And so now there's kind of two programs. And so the mandatory government school system and the hidden propaganda on the TV and in the movies is designed to produce a quote unquote an American. I'm just a human being. So I'm not an American. You don't have to be an American. You don't have to be a Crip just because you're born in Compton. You don't have to be a Blood just because you're born in East LA. I'm a human being. I'm on this planet. I'm a sentient human being. I don't believe in any of this hocus pocus. I love my neighbors. I love people that are good, honest people within the country. But the average person in Hawaii doesn't have a lot in common with the average person in Oklahoma, and the average person in Seattle, Washington doesn't have a lot in common with the average person in Florida. And the thing that's supposed to unite the United States is freedom and liberty. And if you don't have that, then it's just an artificial tribe. It's an artificial religion to get you to hand over to tithe a portion of your income. And so the mandatory government school produces kind of the basic level of indoctrination where, you're willing to more or less voluntarily tithe your income over. But to enforce that, they need what are called order followers. And order followers are religious zealots willing to enforce the commandments of the religion on those that aren't going along with the program. And so that program, there's another kind of little sidetrack for the order followers to create order followers. And that starts with the youth program. And so the youth program is going to now give kids, and this is the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts in the United States, we're going to give kids awards, Cub Scout adventure loops, Boy Scout merit badges for a deeper level of programming, citizenship in the country, citizenship in the nation. We're going to, teach them how to fold the flag, salute the flag, caress the flag. When the flag gets old, can't just throw it away. We've got to bury it because it's a venerated holy object. We're going to get them into the uniform, the single form. We're going to teach them hierarchical command and control. And ultimately, we're going to produce an order follower who is willing to set his morality aside and use violence either to go and murder people in foreign wars based on lies and manufactured intelligence, or to enforce the commandments, the laws on his neighbors. And by the time that you go through the youth program and the explorers and the JROTC and the ROTC and military training where they're going to segment you away from the rest of society, you're not going to get it. You're going to have so much indoctrination drummed into you using unethically manipulative techniques like sleep deprivation and segmenting you off, from the rest of society, to putting you in the uniform, to shaving your head, to doing all these things that you don't, it's very hard to communicate with somebody that's been put through multiple levels of this indoctrination. But it all starts with the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts. Then it gets kind of creepy, because then as the kids get older, now we're going to teach them how to kill. So now this is the Explorer program, the Police Explorer program, the Military Explorer program, Young Marines, DoD Starbase, JROTC, ROTC. Now we are going to shave the kids' heads. Now we're going to begin segmenting them away from their parents. We're going to give them uniforms. We're going to take them on ride-alongs. We're going to, put them in these programs where we're going to just reinforce that it's legitimate, that we get to rule the population. And if the population doesn't like it, that's just tough. You use the billy club and the stick, and you arrest them and you put them in a cage if they don't go along with us stealing their money, or with them not following our commandments and whatever. And we're now going to teach you how to kill. And so that is creepy in and of itself. The next technique is pledges and oaths forced on kids. Thousands and thousands of repetitions from, in mandatory government schools and these youth programs from a young age. And the Hitler Youth had it, and the Young Pioneers had it. And everybody, they're all running essentially the same techniques. And it's thousands and thousands of repetitions.
Jeez, man. Yeah, I just to cut in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm total this is what you mentioned earlier about how so many levels of programming. It's so hard to talk to someone that has experienced that. It's I think, at least from my perspective, it seems like the newer the generation, the less of that there is, but maybe I could be way off on that. That could just be from my experience dealing with my elders, who, especially the ones who really know the laws, and they like you said, religious zealots in a sense. Yeah. Not to be defamatory, but it does feel that way, right? They get very heated and very passionate when you question the doctrines that have been laid out. And not only that, but if you're not really well versed, or perhaps have a book like yours right in front of you, it's, at least for me, it's been impossible to deal with the comments and the answers that are given right back, because when someone knows this system well, this system is perfect. It's so easy. Like, there's an answer for every claim that someone like me with a giant tinfoil hat on makes about our government. There's always some logical, legal, accepted answer to that. It fails me to give you an example right off the bat, but I think you know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I mean, I've seen people that literally have their Constitution and they've got it all highlighted out like a Bible, and that they think it's the greatest document that the political philosophy and theory has ever produced, because they were taught that in the mandatory government school, and that the media program has got plenty of books they've developed over the years that are going to convince them of that, and they've accepted this belief system as a religion. And so it would, in a lot of cases, if you're an American and you're trying to talk somebody out of being an American is like trying to talk somebody out of being a Catholic, or trying to talk somebody out of being a Hare Krishna, or trying to talk somebody, out of being a Buddhist, or trying to talk somebody out of, whatever religion that they've accepted into their worldview, because they read it out of a holy book. And so that, it really is, it is a religion. They don't call it a religion, but if you take a look at the techniques that the government is using, and you compare those to an unethically manipulated, religion like Jonestown, Jim Jones, and you just take a look, at what he was doing. He segmented his followers away from the rest of society. He moved them down to Jonestown. It's the exact same technique. So they're all there is a handbook of how do you create a cult. And many people, throughout history have used the handbook to create other cults and religions. And, the Mormons dress their kids up in the uniform, the single form for conformity. And, and anybody that's seen, it's the exact, we're running the exact same techniques as an unethically manipulative religion or a cult. And so I'll just go through a couple more just to give everybody, and as I'm going through these for those that might just be listening on the radio or, on the podcast without being able to see the pages of the book, I'm showing pictures of what this looked like in each different, time and place. And it's startling, how similar. It's the exact same program that the Nazis were using. It's the exact same program that the Soviets were using. It's the exact same program the East Germans were using. And so it is a playbook. And
it almost looks like the same people. I mean, if you were to witness this comparison, if you were a detective and you're chasing down a criminal of some kind, if you are a criminal group, just like the mob, I mean, shit, you call them organized crime. We could reference almost any Hollywood movie about organized crime from the detective's perspective. This kind of behavior in multiple places points them right at a singular person. And it seems like on a massive scale. And we don't even have to go down crazy conspiracy lane with like the 13 families or anything, even though that kind of seems legitimate too.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that this is like a group of individuals. This isn't just a philosophy that naturally develops over time in random. I hate that excuse. Like we're born with hatred or, this is just part of humanity. It just doesn't add up to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a completely artificially indoctrinated worldview that says that there's a ruling class called the government, which has rights that you don't have, and that gets to use violence on you, and that gets to make up rules for everybody. And they've got this big, and then it's the media on every single channel, and we'll talk about how they've been monopolized and how they control the media and how they control the search engines and everything like that. But
And that's not just the news, that's Hollywood too. I mean, it's all of it. It's
oh, yeah,
every
we're
celebrity
weaving
we
it.
see.
Yeah, like we're weaving it into the movies, we're weaving it into the television shows, we're showing you how you got to act in court, and that it's legitimate that the government gets to haul you into their own like little rigged court system, and that when you pay them, you got to pay them. And there's a nice judge in Rhode Island that lets people off, and they show
Right.
little clips on Facebook or whatever of the nice little judge in Rhode Island letting people off. But at the end of the day, there's a group that gets to rule you and take your money and make up rules for you, and all because hundreds of years ago, a couple dozen slave owners on a continent of 3 million people went into a room and wrote down on a fancy piece of paper that they alone get to make up rules for everybody and steal the wealth of others. And that's why you owe them half your income. And it is dumb. It is a dumb idea, but because they taught it to most people when they were kids, before they were old enough to really evaluate the logic or the morality, they've accepted it. Because here's the other thing: human beings are computers. They're supercomputers. There's a supercomputer between your ears. But if you, like a computer, garbage in, garbage out. And so that's why they call it programming on television. And that's what they're doing. They're controlling the information the supercomputer, comes in, to be able to spit out, a preconceived worldview that says it's legitimate that we get to take your money. It's legitimate that we get to rule you and control you. And they've got people that if you aren't going along with the religion, that will, they've got some shave-headed people in uniforms that will kill you if you don't get along with it. So it's somewhat of a death cult in the sense that, they've created a class of people within society that are willing to murder their fellow human beings because they're told by the leaders of an artificially indoctrinated religion. And so that's what we're up against. Just to break down some of the other techniques, now on the screen, I've got military and police are artificially glorified and celebrated. And here's another hypertext link where the US government has been caught paying professional sports teams over $53 million a year to include these pro-military, pro-government messages during the games and the circuses. And so the sports team is like the artificial tribe. They get you, instead of you focused on your neighbors and thinking you're in a tribe with your neighbors, they're going to get you in a tribe of cowboys or Indians or like whatever children's games played by adults. And then when they get you in the stadium, they're going to pay the teams to propagandize you and do the flag worship and the flyovers and the BS. And they have to pay the teams to do it, which is how that it's illegitimate and it's artificial. They're having to pay for it. It's not, these aren't, spontaneous, patriotism. They all use political rallies, which is like a religious revival. The participants frequently engage in the worship of the artificially created and promoted political saviors, not understanding that organized crime is leveraging knowledge of human psychology to exploit most, but not all humans' biological desire for a leader or father figure and inclusion in the tribe. They all use propaganda. Again, here's another hypertext link. CIA, DOD have direct involvement in 800 plus major movies, 1,000 plus television shows. I'm using Argo, Zero Dark 30 as some examples, but like this is the reason why when you watch the movies, especially the ones on Netflix and Amazon Prime, the government's always the hero. Whether it's the CIA agent saving the world from nuclear terrorism, or whether it's the FBI agent or the ATF agent or the DEA agent or the air marshal or the Fish and Wildlife Service or the president of the United States flying fighter jets to protect the planet from invading aliens, the government is always the hero. And we're going to product place the flag in moments of high positive emotion to get you to have a warm and fuzzy. They all use manufactured manufactured news, overt or surreptitious control of publishers, editors, and reporters to create an artificial reality. And so in 1976, it came out in something called the Church Committee hearings that the CIA had hundreds and hundreds of reporters that were on the payroll and were being paid to product place agency propaganda into foreign news services, newspapers, broadcasts. This still goes on today. I've got other examples later in the book of reporters that, in the modern era that have come out and publicly said, the CIA paid me to write this story, or the CIA gave me a story and told me to put my name on it. And so that program is still going out. We're going to control the information the public, believes by controlling kind of the key reporters and editors and publishers. It's the government and the media working together to widely control perception. They all use manufactured terrorism. They all use false flag events, manufactured intelligence and lies to start wars. They all use political assassination of rivals, whistleblowers, and dissidents. So we're rigging the elections. And if we can't rig the election, we'll just kill the candidate we don't like. They all use political temples dedicated to the state and to its deities. So I mentioned it earlier. We're going to take the kids to Mecca, Washington, D.C. We're going to take them into the temples. We're going to show them the deities. It's going to be very hushed and very reverent. They all use monopoly government fiat money to steal value secretly from the population. So it's the banks at the top, so it's different, think of them as different organized crime families. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm an organized crime researcher. And you've got different factions that are vying for control of Murder Incorporated. And so at the top of the food chain, one of the key, one of the key power centers is the banks, and the banks lobbied and bribed the government in 1913 to give them the ability to engage in fractional reserve banking. So the Federal Reserve is a creature of the money center banks that sits behind the banks and backstops them to lend money that they don't have. And so the kind of the scam is that we're going to allow the banks to create money that they don't have and loan it at interest, so that when you go get a mortgage or you get a car loan, that's not depositor money that they're loaning you. They just tickle the ivories, bing, and they credit your account with digital dollars, even though that's inflationary. And even though that's stealing the value out of everybody else's dollars, and even though that's an exorbitant privilege to allow certain companies in the economy the ability to create money out of thin air. I mean, I've got a company. I don't get to create money out of thin air. I bet you don't get to create money out of thin air. How come those guys get to create money out of thin air? And that's the reason why the bank is the biggest building in every town and city in the United States, because they make exorbitant profits. And then those exorbitant profits have allowed them to buy up the media and to consolidate information so that you don't understand how you're getting robbed.
The book Modern Money Mechanics lays all of this right out in plain English. Well, not plain English, really. I mean, economics is pretty baffling to most people, including me. And I guess that's on purpose. But if you do have the know-how to read that book, it's weird that that book is even allowed to be taken off of a library shelf. You know what I mean? Like, why would something like that exist that would kind of give the right mind the right direction? It's almost like they allow it to be out there, but only if you're really astute and paying attention to what it is. Have you noticed that?
Well, it's also, I mean, frankly, they're between 1984 and Brave New World 1. I mean, we still got shades of 1984, but Brave New World is the idea that we're just going to get the population drugged up on caffeine and on weed and on alcohol. And we're going to get them to care about, about children's games played by adults instead of understanding their real power in society, instead of protecting the real tribe, their friends, their family, their neighbors. We're going to get them all, hot and bothered about the artificial tribe of the children's game played by adults. And so we're going to take their life force energy and we're going to get them to waste it with pornography or with drugs or with, BS, to where they don't care that they're getting robbed, or that, they don't understand that they're getting robbed, and they're focused on, effeminate, when I say like effeminate, I mean, they're not like it's the man's duty to protect his friends, family, and tribe. If we're under attack and you're not at the front of the, if you're not in the front of the line helping to protect the tribe, you're worthless. Right. You're not even a man. And so like they've turned the population into infantiles because they've been poisoning them culturally. They've been poisoning them physically. They've been poisoning their minds. They've been, drugging them up, and they've been getting them, but distracting and deceiving them with gaming and television. And they've been getting people to waste their lives on things that don't really matter while they've been stealing half their income. And a lot of the population, they don't even realize that they've been getting half their income stolen, And so it really is, a very effective system, and it's the vaccines, it's the glyphosated wheat, it's the glutamates, it's the fluoride in the, in the water that they tell you is there because the government just wants you to have healthy teeth. It's just, it is,
meanwhile, it's toxic on every other level in any other category.
You got it. But we're dumbing down the population. And if you didn't know that this program was going on, and you've been drinking the fluoridated water, you've been eating the glyphosated wheat, you've been doing, you've been sucking on you've been getting your vaccines, you've been getting chumped into injecting yourself with aluminum hydroxide, aluminum phosphate, polysorbate 80, mercury in the form of thimerosal, for just, BS reasons that they tell you on television that, oh, you're going to get the flu if you don't get a flu shot.
Yeah, it's just more middlemen for everything.
Yeah. So it's, that's why they can release these books that are only, now read by, the people that were smart enough to avoid the poisons and the toxins and the coffee and the caffeine and the nicotine and all the other, stuff that they've been, putting into society to weaken society. Right. I'll just finish up. They all spy on the citizens, which is how they're good people. They all use torture as policy, which is how they're good people. All of these regimes run secret prisons, for-profit prisons, concentration camps, and black sites, which is how they're good people.
Absolutely.
They all use conscription. They all use manufactured enemies and paid political violence. And that is really the end of the techniques. And that is, like I said, just to give the reader the understanding that that the U.S. is using the exact same playbook as the Nazis, the Soviets, and the East Germans. And so if that doesn't bother you, I don't know what will. The second part of the book is what I call one-pagers, and I'm just going to go through a couple of these, and then we'll kind of open it up for your questions. But so it's a religion, and so the president is the Pope, and the Senate and the House members are kind of the church leadership, and we're going to use trick photography and propaganda to give the president and the church leadership the appearance of holiness. And most people don't realize that this is going on when you see these come by one at a time. But when I put, 36 examples together of the presidents all being photographed using trick photography to where they've appear to have halos or penumbras or light emanating from around them. Well, if you didn't, because you don't really notice it when they come by one at a time, but you add 36 examples like I've done here, then a lot of people are like, oh my God,
Yeah.
they're doing
How
that
many
on purpose.
coincidences are too many coincidences?
Yeah, they're running game on me. They're running a game on me.
And they're getting cocky about it too.
And it's obvious. It's crazy obvious. So then the other thing I wanted to do is, break down the religion of statism. I break down the real history of the Constitution that I like to call the Constitution. Here's I break down the history of the Pledge of Allegiance. It's all, backed up by hypertext links to the authorities, the scholarship behind it, the hidden curriculum of the government school system, the private Federal Reserve and the theft of fractional reserve banking. But this one I call the propaganda matrix. This is really, really one of the ones I want to kind of break down, for your audience. And this right here is a part of a media ownership chart, and everything in the book is backed up by an 8 gigabit or 16 gigabit flash drive, credit card size flash drive that you can just plug into a USB port, and you can download the full scale visualization that I'm showing on the screen right now. But if you tell your friends and family that there are 6 media companies, monopoly media companies, running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody the illusion that there's all these different information sources in society, they may or may not believe you. But if you show them the media ownership chart that I've got on the Liberator, which is what we call our flash drive, then all of a sudden they can see, News Corp here on the left. And News Corp owns, News Corp, which is Fox News. They just don't own Fox News. They own 175 newspapers, and they own magazines, and they own television book publishing, and they own major internet sites, and they own television programming, and they own television distribution, and they own movie studios and movie distribution and book publishing companies and satellite networks. And you're like, holy crap, there's 6 companies running hundreds of subsidiaries that have been giving everybody the illusion that there's all these information sources in society. And so that's how they do it. They're controlling all of the channels, and they're distracting and deceiving every audience. Now, the other thing that I hear frequently is, when you try and explain to somebody the scam of COVID, I can't tell you how many times that I've heard people go, so what you're saying is all the reporters are in on it together and all of the news stations are in on it together.
I get that all the time.
I get it all the time. Until you pull out this other visualization that is an organizational chart showing how the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission have maneuvered their members into all the key reporterships and editorships and publisherships at publications ranging from New York Post to Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, the NBC News, the Economist, the Time Magazine, the Times of London, the Washington Post, CNN, CBS, to Warner Brothers, to the Financial Press, the Financial Times, Foreign Affairs, U.S. News and World Report, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't understand this was going on. And so what I'm doing is I'm using visualization to make what was invisible to the public now visible, where they can see it with their own eyes. And then that's how you take somebody from kind of 0 to 60 in the shortest amount of time. And so now, because they've seen it with their own eyes, now they understand how the magician does the trick and how the population can be tricked into thinking there's a pandemic going on when all the hospitals are empty. And it's like, they do illusion, man. They do illusion. They're controlling.
Misdirection all the time. Absolutely. And, I shouted no because sometimes the answer is no, that like so many pawns are in place under these people that have absolutely no idea what they're a part of. And in a sense, when you really take a step back, in a way, anyone who's not aware of this, and actually plenty of us that are aware of it and still participate because we don't know what else to do, we're all like these people. We're all those, unwitting pawns literally carrying out the whole thing. It almost feels like this could be going on and on and on for hundreds of years. And it's so perfect because it doesn't require absolute knowledge from every participant. It's almost just an ignorant bliss, and we're being carried along through the system that's just working like magic.
Some people are being carried along. Some people are fighting back, and some people are waking up their friends and their neighbors, and some people are moving to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project, and some people are rolling it back. And so there is a huge resistance. You don't see it on the television, but you can go to Freedom Cells. And you can find people in your, Freedom Cells. I forget if it's freedomcells.com or freedomcells.org, but you can find people in your own local, area that are fighting back. You can move to New Hampshire with the Free State Project. You can find like-minded people in homeschooling groups where they understand the hidden curriculum of the government school system, and they've pulled their kids out. And they're homeschooling them on themselves with collectives because they don't want to raise chumps.
That's what I'm all about, man. Yep.
I do want to point out that these three groups, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission, Epstein was part of the exact same groups. And so not only are they controlling widely controlling human perception by controlling the information people receive, but they're also blackmailing politicians and prominent individuals and even royalty using what is known in Washington, D.C. as a brownstone operation, where they'll get these politicians drunk and they'll pop them a roofie and they'll throw them into a room with a little boy or a little girl, and they'll take photographs, and then they'll blackmail them to be able to ensure that they can control, much of the population. And so I think that, Epstein ought to be the poster boy for the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission.
He was also I've heard a lot of stuff that he was putting ungodly amounts of money into cutting edge science as well. So, I mean, and not only cutting edge science, but obviously that means he was probably funding a lot of science and scientists that we're supposed to trust.
Yeah. Not only that, but his, co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father was Robert Maxwell, and he was a media baron that was running dozens and dozens of media, outlets, newspapers, radio stations, television stations, stuff like that. So we're controlling perception. We're controlling the information that the population receives. And then, my daughter's out there blackmailing the ones that we can't, just to make sure that they go along with everything. This other visualization, this one was done by a group called the Fund to Restore an Educated Electorate. And so those same three organizations, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, it's not just the media. It's the presidency, it's the vice presidency, it's the Federal Reserve System, it's the Council of Economic Advisors, it's the heads of the CIA, it's the heads of the FBI, it's the Import-Export Bank, it's the World Bank, it's the cabinet, it's representatives, it's senators, it's presidents of colleges and universities, it's the money center banks. And going back, this chart goes back decades, and Republican or Democratic administrations, every single major, position of power in the United States has been held by one of these organizations, a member of one of these organizations. When you hear people talk about deep state, this is it. I hate the word deep state. I don't like globalists. I don't like elitists. I don't like New World Order. Those are all purposefully unhelpful, purposefully undescriptive terms. This is intergenerational organized crime. The Department of Justice doesn't have a department of doing something about the deep state. If you call it intergenerational organized crime, you're much more precise. People can understand it. They can wrap their head around it. And there's an expectation that law enforcement, whether it be local, state, or federal, needs to get off their ass and do something about it. otherwise they've just been robbing their friends and their neighbors for their salary, living off money stolen from others at the point of a gun. And so, let's call it what it is. This is organized crime. It's people that are using deception and extortion to rob their fellow man. And so, I know we're kind of, like running short on time. I'll just kind of tease the audience with some of these other, visualizations or images in the book. When we get to the back, I've got, quotes from different U.S. presidents, prime ministers talking about this power system. And then really it's meme war. And, I've got some of the funniest memes in liberty. The book is available at government-scam.com. You can download a free preview version of the book that has, about 10% of the pages taken out to check it out. But if you're trying to wake up your friends or your neighbors, or your relatives, I highly recommend getting the physical book. Once they pick it up, they can't put it down. It's been scientifically designed to take them from kind of 0 to 60 in the shortest amount of time, bring them up to speed. And we have a donor to my foundation, the Art of Liberty Foundation, that makes it possible for us to sell these Friends bundles at deeply discounted prices so that you can wake up, your neighbor. We've got people that are putting these books into their libraries, that are putting books in little mini libraries. We've got people that you put them as coffee table books in their Airbnbs. And so
that's awesome.
We've sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books in Friends bundles where people are giving them, out to their neighbors, and we cut it down. We cut it down to the bone at, government-scam.com to be able to get it out there and wake up your friends and neighbors.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for going through all this with me. And I did want to, if you have a little bit of time, to get into the Free State Project, because I'm directly south of New Hampshire, and that's one of my favorite places to ever go. I climb mountains up there all the time, and I have friends in New Hampshire, and I would love to go to New Hampshire. I don't know, I have to convince my wife, but what's going on with the Free State Project and the Art of Liberty?
So there's lots and lots of libertarians and voluntarists, out there that don't believe what the government and the media are telling them. But the problem is they're located all over the United States, and they're dispersed, and they're the minority. And so almost 2 decades ago, someone came up with the idea that we'd be a lot more powerful if we concentrated in a single small population U.S. state where we could, effectively essentially take over the government and reduce it to just protecting life, liberty, and property, get rid of the socialism, get rid of the crony capitalism, et cetera. And so people thought that was a good idea. So they had a beauty contest among states, and they said, okay, well, which low population state would be the easiest to take over? And they took a look at the, amount of people that, it really needed to be a state that had under a 1.5 million population. They figured that it would take about 20,000, dedicated activists in a state that had that low of a population to be able to, to have an impact. And so they took a look at, which of these states had a history of liberty, which of these states had, unpaid legislature, which of the states had the easiest representation. And it really came down to Wyoming and New Hampshire. New Hampshire won. And the deal with the Free State Project is that everybody signed a statement of intent saying that that you didn't have to move until the total membership of the group hit 20,000. And so, but once they picked it in 2002, some people, once New Hampshire won the beauty contest in 2002, people began moving immediately, and they were called early movers. And so the Free State Project has been on the ground here in New Hampshire since 2003, essentially. They have 550 meetups a year, every corner of the state. They've gotten libertarians, small L libertarians, and big L libertarians, but mostly small L libertarians as Republicans, or some of them as Democrats, elected into the legislature. There's 25 currently serving now, and they've been rolling back government. And so everywhere else, socialism and communism are like springing up in California and Oregon and Austin, Texas, and all these places that used to be red are now turning blue, except in New Hampshire, which is the only really state in the country that's going in the opposite direction. And so our goal for New Hampshire is to turn it into a laboratory of liberty. And guess what? It works. So when you minimize government, as they've been doing, in the state, New Hampshire has one of the highest per capita incomes. It has one of the lowest, poverty rates, the lowest unemployment rates, the lowest, kids living in poverty. It works like gangbusters. There's incredible prosperity here. I'm in New Hampshire right now. We just got done with the something called the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Yeah,
and there
that's
were
right. How was it?
Fantastic. 2,500 sold out completely. They take over the largest campground in New Hampshire, Rogers Campground in Lancaster. It's still going on. There's another one called Fork Fest that's going on this week. Pork Fest was last week.
Yeah,
but there were 2,500 liberty lovers, new people that were checking out the state for the first time, and every single week, more and more people arrive in New Hampshire and begin getting busy, rolling back and exposing this organized crime government, the scam of government, and working on reducing government to just its, protecting life, liberty, and property. My foundation, the Art of Liberty Foundation, we promote something called the Free State Project. And we think that the way to get around the monopolization of the media and the algorithmic censorship of the internet, and by the way, I showed the example of the monopolization of the media, but that was the old school media. So that media ownership chart, that's the radio stations, that's the television stations, that's the movie studios, that's the newspapers. On the new media side, there's probably 2 to 3 dozen internet search engines or social media sites or fact-checking sites or movie streaming video sites. This is the CIA, Google, and we break down the evidence of that in our flash drive of Freedom the Liberator. There's an article called How the CIA Made Google, which you can get on the internet, or you used to be able the last time I checked. But you can
maybe about 20 pages deep now or so. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's not gone entirely.
Exactly. But if you go find the article How the CIA Made Google, you can find the specific DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency programs that Google came out of. You can get all the evidence for that claim. But we're going to control. We had the internet way before anybody else had the internet. We're going to use it to control perception. So we're going to fund these 2 to 3 dozen companies: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snopes, Reddit, Discuss, the Comment Engine, Meetup, Wikipedia, Amazon, Netflix. I think you're probably getting the idea. We're going to give them unlimited capital. We're going to give them patents. We're going to give them the ability to buy up and consolidate their competition so they have the dominant platform. And these are the platforms that have been caught censoring, caught deplatforming truth activists, caught demonetizing the alternative media, caught shadow banning voices they don't know, caught fact checking information supposedly that is incorrect, even though it is correct. And so that's how they're doing it. We've got unlimited money because we're allowing banks to create it out of thin air. We've bought up the media. We've bought up the internet companies. We're using it to control perception widely, so we can make people believe that we got to go to war in Iraq because terrorists bombed us, or we got to go to war and there's a pandemic where people are dropping dead in the street in China, even though the hospitals are empty. And, it's if you don't understand how the magician does the trick, I can understand how people get fooled by the trick. But I got a book, Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, that will explain to your friends and family how the magician does the trick. And now there's no excuse to continually get fooled by the trick. And so we've got a lot of solutions in the back of the book, but that is one of the ones that we recommend the most is the Free State Project. So with the Pre-State Project, we want to create in New Hampshire a pre-stater is somebody that already lives in New Hampshire. They're not moving to New Hampshire. They already live there. And so we want to drop 100,000 copies of the book, 100,000 flash drives, 100,000 documentaries to get around the algorithmic censorship of the internet, to get around the monopolization of the media. Brute force attack on censorship. It's the only way to get around it. We're going to go door to door. We're going to wake up everybody in New Hampshire, and we're going to explain to them what's going on in a way that's going to get this entire state talking about it. So that's what we're trying to get funded. We're a startup public policy organization. If any of your listeners can introduce us to some heavy hitters that would like to, if you want a free Massachusetts, free New Hampshire first.
Yeah, absolutely. New Hampshire first.
You want a free
California? We're a long way off down here.
You want a free California, free New Hampshire first. If you want free,
they're in another galaxy.
Free New Hampshire. And so we want to get one state across the goal line. If we get one state across the goal line, then it becomes impossible for all the other states to ignore what's going on in New Hampshire. We're already there thanks to the dedicated effort of the Free State Project. There's over 5,000 plus free staters on the ground here. More and more of them arrive every single week. We just had 2,500 of them get together in New Hampshire last week. It is very exciting on what's going on. And so that's what we're about. You can find out more about the foundation and the plan to free New Hampshire at government-scam.com/foundation. You can see our executive summary. You can understand what we're doing for the fundraise. And, anybody that wants to get involved, please contact us at government-scam.com.
That's awesome, man. That's I love it. That just dropping 100,000 copies. It's just so metal. I love it. You basically answered my next and final question, which was, do you see this movement growing? And clearly it's growing. And I think I'll be joining it soon too. Let's hope.
Yeah, come on over. The water is fine.
The mountains are beautiful and dangerous and awesome.
It is. And the people are so cool because they're awake, they're intelligent, they're free thinkers. They're not being fooled by the COVID. Nobody's wearing any. There wasn't a single mask. I did not see a single mask. 2,500 people, not a single mask.
That's awesome.
Believe me, there's not going to be any super spreader event. Nobody, it's just ridiculous. There was nobody wearing masks last year, and it didn't turn into a super spreader event. The only people that if you turn off the television, you're going to be just fine.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Etienne, for joining us. And where can our listeners find you? Just that, or are you on social media too?
Yeah, the best place is government-scam.com.
Right.
For those that we've got a discount code at government-scam.com/Monica. We put together for Monica Perez's propaganda report audience. You can get on, your audience can get in on that, and they can see a really good interview with Monica Perez where we break it down as well. So government-scam /Monica and government-scam /foundation to find out how to help the foundation. We're going to expose this thing. These people are going down. We're going to win this thing. That's the good news. And we don't need government. Everything that government does would better be done by the free market, by, mutual aid societies, real charity, or it shouldn't be done at all. It's the biggest secret kept from the American people that we just don't need government. It's been a scam to rob everybody and control everybody. Once we get this parasite off our back, you're going to see the economy You're going to see the economy boom. You're going to see wages go up. It's not that there's not going to be an adjustment period. By the way, that it's Bernie Madoff level scandal. The bad news is nobody's going to get Social Security. It's been gone. You've been robbed. There's no other way to break it to people that these government programs are going to come to an end, and that we're going to have to dig our way out of this thing. But the key thing is when this organized crime system collapses and when people, discover the scam of government, it's imperative that we rebuild without the government. It's imperative that society learn the lesson of history this time, that government is a scam. It was never designed to protect you. It's always been designed to rob and enslave you. And if we can free up the market, the free market, the invisible hand, the capital creation mechanisms, if we can get rid of the malinvestment and the wasting of capital, bombing empty valleys in Afghanistan and Iraq so that people can profiteer off the war, the economy will boom. But first, we got to get rid of government.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all this with my audience. And again, audience, go get this book. I'm probably going to pick up like a good amount of them, and I would love to see more people buying up this book, because it's pretty mind-blowing from what I've seen so far. So thanks so much, Etienne, for joining, and hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely. And thank you for what you do. I mean, this is it. This is all of us doing, it's 1,000 flowers booming. We're all working together in this. It is the freedom movement. It is the liberty movement. We're all in it together. And I just thank you for what you do as well.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate being a part of a larger community. I'm seeing what you're doing in New Hampshire. I'm starting to see, even in just the podcasting community itself, it's popping up everywhere where we're not leaving behind the podcast, but people want to do more. We want to get together. We want this to be a real thing, And I think it's time, after this many decades of constantly talking about it, it's time to do something about it. So
absolutely. So it's intentional communities. It's meeting your neighbor. It's turning off the television and meeting your neighbors. It's talking about how are we going to solve these problems without government, and it's happening. It's happening right now, and it's happening in New Hampshire.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, you have a great night. All right.
You too. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to the audience.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay?